It all starts here. In the ending of a shield hero's journey, everything that Naofumi Iwatani has gone through has led up to this. It seems like the worlds are saved and everybody can finally go home. But it's truly, truly bittersweet. He's made some amazing friends along the way and some amazing people that currently and may always be standing beside him. But at the end of the day, the decision had to be made. And the decision to go back home was obviously made by Naofumi. He wants to see his family again. His entire family again. He wants to live a normal life again. Live the life that he sought after and the life that he left so long ago. He has no idea what's going to happen when he steps through and he leaves this world after, or basically leaving behind some of the best people he's ever met, the people that he's protected and saved and done so many things with. Well, he feels like it's all collapsing and it's all going to come to an end now. Naofumi would say his goodbyes with people crying like Raftalia and Philo, but many others standing there proudly, enjoying the fact that they stood by and stood next to Naofumi Iwatani, the legendary shield hero. But soon those waves and those goodbyes and all of those things would change as he steps through and he begins to glow a beautiful glow that he once saw a long time ago when he first opened the book about the 4 cardinal heroes. And in a matter of seconds, that glow would fade, then glimmer, then spark, and then disappear. Naofumi would appear in a city once again, a city that feels so brand new to him. A smile would grow over his face as he looks around to see the people walking. It's normality once again. The city's raging on, the city, people are walking, enjoying life, and wait, no, this is different. A little bit too different. Naofumi continues to look around and he realizes something. That the buildings he once left are not the same. How much time has truly passed? Has things really drastically changed in this way? No. The city that he was in, the library that he entered, the place that his family upheld, this city is not only completely different, there is no remnant of the old one. There is no remnant of a past city that used to even exist until he sees something that would terrify him to his bones. Well, that would be people walking around with weapons, with gear, with armor, and they're all talking about something, talking about monsters and gates and all of these things, and he's completely struck by the idea that this world may be so similar to the one he once was in. Is this really his home world? Is this really his home world? The world that he once knew now changed into something like this? This terrifies him, thinking of his family. What could have happened of them? He begins to run through the streets looking for his family home, but his family home is nowhere to be found. He can't find even a glimpse of it. And he stops. He begins to breathe heavily as he's slightly tired, and as he breathes heavily, he goes to wipe the sweat from his face, and as he does, he feels a cold metal touch his head, and when he looks on his arm, he sees something that he wasn't expecting to see, and that was his shield. The shield still strapped around his arm, and as he looks and is complete in shock by the revelation that his shield is still stuck to his arm, so much so that when he throws it off, it still appears right back on. Someone runs over to him and asks, well, where'd he get that shield? I mean, that's insane. A shield that can appear back on his arm when he gets rid of it, when he loses it? That's amazing. How much money, how much gold, how much currency did he spend for that? And he would stand there in shock, not saying a word, and the person would even stand there for about 15, 20, 25 seconds and question if the guy is a hunter. I mean, he has to be, right? That's why he has the shield. In which Naofumi would shake his head and respond, yeah, hunter. That's what I am. I gotta go. Naofumi would walk away, as the guy would call him kinda weird, because Naofumi would begin running around looking at the gates. He would see gate after gate. Seemingly, that's how the monsters and other people fight monsters and how the monsters appear in general, and he's kind of freaking out. He really entered a world where he's going to have to fight monsters all over again. He's really entered a world where he's going to have to deal with monsters, creatures, and even more on top of that. How is he going to deal with this? I mean, he already went through hell, and it seems like all of the output and all of the leveling and all of the power he got from the shield, it's gone. It's no longer stored up. It's no longer within his shield. All the hours, days, months of training, gone. Everything he worked for, everything he tried to maintain, all the power he gained from the Blessed series to his shield's countless utility, to his immense amount of and ability of potion making, everything. It's all gone. What is happening, and what is even, he doesn't know. He begins to actually and mentally just check out to this point, and he continues to contemplate with himself. What does he do? Does he somehow become a hunter? Does he just live life normally here? He feels like there's no way for him to truly understand what this world is unless he becomes a hunter himself. So he begins to look into it. He begins to try to gain information about how to become a hunter and what the qualifications are, and so on and so forth. And eventually he comes across a whole breakdown of what he needs to do. A couple exams, a couple classes, a couple things here and there, a couple minor tests, and then an evaluation to see what type of hunter he was going to be. It seems like they have some sort of magical sort of rating that he doesn't necessarily understand, but still, it seems as if that's what it's going to be. He puts his hand on, or steps into some sort of chamber, or puts his hand on some sort of orb, and that's what tells him what kind of magical rating he has. He's not sure, but he does see that it seems like there's a ranking from E to S and everything in between, and he doesn't know what type of ranking he's going to get or what type of level he's going to be portrayed as. But he thinks to himself that he should get appraised as soon as possible, because if he wants to make an actual impact and actually, well, figure out what the hell is going on, that's probably the first step. So he decides that he's going to iron some things out, you could say. Try to get some things figured out on the half of trying to get his evaluation. And after he does everything that he needs to get done, he does get evaluated. And when he gets evaluated, it's something that would shock him and would pretty much throw him off quite a bit. And that would be the fact that he would be ranked as an E hunter. Yeah. And this would completely throw him off, because that would mean that he is the weakest hunter. And this would be completely out of the ordinary for Naofumi, at least at this point, because of how much he's gained in terms of strength. I mean, obviously in the beginning of Shield Hero and the beginning of his journey, he was pretty weak. I mean, he was the Shield Hero, wasn't allowed to or even able to use other weapons, but it seems in this world he starts just as bad. There's ranks that are divided into E, D, C, B, A, and then the highest is S. But at the end of the day, he is the E-ranked hunter. He is an E-ranked hunter, and they tell him that not many people out there are actually E-ranked hunters. It's actually kind of impressive that he's on such a low spectrum. It's almost as low as this other guy that they met not too long ago, or, well, someone that's been working really hard, but, well, let's just say he's kind of known as the weakest hunter ever. I mean, he's not as low as him, but, I mean, he's damn well really close. In which immediately Naofumi would ask, who is this person? And the person would contemplate if they remember his name, and then they would be like, oh, yes, Sun Jin Woo. That's the weakest hunter, and that is the weakest E-rank hunter ever. In which Naofumi would hear this name, but kind of shrug it off. Of course, not knowing or even really caring who he is necessarily, but he was just curious that there really was someone weaker than him. So this is when he starts a journey that feels very repetitive for him. A journey that he knows very, very well, and that's gathering as much material as possible that he can at least use in general outside of these so-called gates. He believes that these gates will be beneficial for him, will be beneficial in terms of absorption and also learning and also gaining power for his shield. But right now, what he needs to worry about is copying as many different shields as he possibly can, and that includes some of the more expensive and absolutely expensive shields. And he begins to copy them without anybody noticing, and he begins to absorb as much stuff as he possibly can that is like, you know, free sample of like potion like items, or even finding out recipes for different minor potions and trying to go find them and gain his herbalism back once again. He was a great potion maker, and he was great at making different types of potions. So this is definitely a way for him to make money in the long run as well. That is something for him to gain in terms of just making as much and a crap load of money as quick as possible. And that's what he does, frankly. I know he could technically go take on Gates, but not many people actually want an E-rank hunter on their side. He would have to take on a low-level dungeon and be kind of just on the back burner, at least at the moment. And a lot of people would believe that he's not going to be useful, so he needs to be really careful about that. Now, with that said, he is definitely, or would definitely be, a tank-like person, and a lot of people need tanks, so it could be beneficial in the near future. But for now, he continues to pick herbs, gain as much knowledge about the world, kind of as he sells different things, he buys different things back so he can absorb them, and he gains the ability to create potions for himself. He gains basically the ability to create a ton of different things, and even go as far as allowing him to unlock different versions of his shields that are relatively basic but still at least somewhat beneficial. Now, the main thing that would be big for him is that he has been able to buy extremely expensive, or not buy, but copy extremely expensive shields that are going to massively benefit him in the long run. But obviously, it does draw some attention if he just flaunts it around. So he makes sure that he shows his base shield for now, and when he's getting ready to actually take on his first ever gate, he'll then show off that shield. But it seems as if that he's going to have a chance to actually show off that shield sooner than he could possibly imagine. Because, well, let's just say there's something going on nearby that he is just getting a glimpse of. Because right now, I'm gonna be honest, he doesn't have enough money to actually live and have a little apartment or anything like that. So he's kind of just been sleeping in nearby parks, trying not to get caught, because obviously he doesn't want to get in trouble for anything like that. He wants to not draw attention to himself. But soon he would see a fight breaking out, and he would see a monster actually outside of a gate. And this would shock him, because he thought that the gates are what holds the monsters. He didn't know that the gates could actually trickle out monsters the way that this one has. So he begins to go over to actually help the people over there, and luckily enough, he was able to maintain and eventually retain some of his old abilities. Naofumi's main ability that he loves and absolutely loves using would be his airstrike shield, something that he's still able to use, especially now. So he's able to basically use an airstrike shield to block some of the damage that is basically being sent toward this group of people trying to defeat this giant golem-like creature. Now Fumi's a tank. I'm gonna be honest, he is flat out right now, at least at this moment, and he lacks a lot of the punching power he once had, and that's because he frankly doesn't have any absorbed creatures or anything like that. I mean, once he starts absorbing certain creatures or certain parts of certain creatures, he might start gaining some insane shields. But for now, he has absolutely nothing because he hasn't gone through any gates. Now, he's still able to protect and actually help out this group, and everybody is shocked to see this because, I mean, they weren't expecting someone else to show up, but soon Naofumi would get really creative with using some of his shield-like abilities. These shield-like abilities are pretty basic, don't get me wrong, but they're definitely helpful, and that's for sure. Because once he starts using his airstrike shield more aggressively, and then even turning it into a second shield, putting the shield behind the golem, and then one of his other airstrike shields horizontally through the golem, hitting the golem, injuring it quite a bit, everybody is pretty damn shocked, asking what kind of ability is that? And he tells the tank to take a break and that he can start tanking so that he can regain some of his health, putting up more of a shield and also blocking as much damage as possible using one of his more, if not the most expensive shield he was able to copy. He's able to fend off this giant golem to a large extent while people heal him relatively good. But Naofumi doesn't necessarily even need the healing, being that he actually has a ton of potions now that he's been storing up, but it definitely helps. He's able to hold off the golem and actually injure it quite a bit using some of his sneaky tactics that he's been utilizing, and even restrict the golem through actually a plant-based shield that is wrapping vines around the golem. It's nothing insane and nothing kind of super overpowered or anything like that, but with the restriction of the golem, it seems like someone from behind him is able to take out the golem's head, smashing it almost instantaneously, blowing it into pieces. Now, Fumi would be excited to see this and would slightly smile, but then he would come back down to reality, and that reality is that he's still stuck in this world, a world he knows absolutely very little about. He would turn around to see who did it, and everybody would look confused. Now, Fumi would revert his shield back to normal, as everybody is shocked to see this, but he waves off and he questions. He begins to look around to see who did it, and eventually his senses would catch up to him and he would see a glimpse of somebody running away, but he doesn't catch them full on. He's unfortunately unable to figure out who, well, that was, but still he kind of waves it off, and he doesn't worry about who it is. He's just happy that it got handled. He would walk over to the beast and absorb some of the beast, or the golem, within his shield, giving him quite a bit of a power boost, and defeating the golem himself, or itself, has given him quite a few levels, which this would make Naofumi happy to see, basically showing that he's still going to be able to level and maybe even be able to do other things that he feels might be important very, very soon. Because like all of us know, in his previous world, he was obviously able to not only level up, but actually have a team that would level up with him, and he could control a party like a party of some sorts. He would even look into his more game-like leveling type of system that he personally has, and he would look at a lot of things and they would all look very similar, if not exactly the same. So now Fumi is thinking to himself that at least he has the fallback of knowing what the hell he's doing, because that's at least something that's going to definitely be beneficial. Now, he does, absorb as much of this stone golem that emerged from this D-ranked gate, and he gains some and quite a few good abilities. This golem was pretty damn strong, and he even gains an ability of making a shield that can make him not only tankier, but like drastically tankier. And on top of that, it allows him to spit out different stones off of his shield, giving him an ability to actually fight at least a little bit more. So now Fumi's happy to see this, and even sees that he's gained a passive ability of just more defense. So nothing wrong with a little bit more defense, so he's happy about that as well. And after absorbing this stone golem, he now realizes that he needs to continue doing gates, because this is something that he could genuinely get more and more money from. This is something that is going to be super beneficial to him, because it's not only he's going to get more money from it, but he's actually going to get more power from it. Power, strength, it's all of the name of the game, and it's something that he's extremely excited to be involved in. Now, this would lead him to actually thinking to himself, he needs to make some money. He needs a place to stay. He's tired of sleeping on grass, tired of sleeping on the ground, but he does know he needs to make some money, maybe somehow gain some allies or whatever. That's all he could think about at the moment, and he just debates with himself. How is he supposed to do those things? And he's sitting in the park one day, just relaxing and chilling, just thinking to himself, what's the best course of action to make money? Maybe through the gates, maybe he somehow can find a gate and join a team where they can make some money that way, or anything like that. He's not 100% sure, but he feels like there needs to be some sort of way for him to do these things. And he sits there and thinks for a while, and eventually he actually feels a rub against his leg. That rub against his leg absolutely scares him. He jumps back for a second to see that it's actually a little dog. And he thinks to himself that, wow, I mean, he hasn't seen just a normal dog in a while, like not to like this degree. This is obviously just like your run of the mill typical dog. And he pets the dog for a little bit and then thinks to himself, well, if his party system works the exact same way, he wonders, can he actually put this dog in his party? He thinks to himself, like, that feels a little cruel, and he doesn't want to have the dog get hurt, but it seems like the dog has basically wanting to be around him no matter what. Everywhere he moves, the dog is latched onto him, and even so that the dog will hop on his back and wrap around his neck almost and just lay there and sleep. It's as if the dog has like this innate skill of knowing that Naofumi is some sort of animal whisperer. So Naofumi decides to have the dog join his party and thinks to himself that maybe he can gain some sort of strength off of it. Maybe the dog will be even more powerful or get more powerful and gain abilities. He's not sure. He has no idea. He doesn't know if it's different in this world or if it's different at all, but he thinks to himself that it couldn't hurt, right? It could be beneficial. Maybe the dog could even carry some things for him in the long run. So they continue their journeys together, and I almost said the other main character that I talk about in terms of a different anime. Naofumi would continue his journey and would continue trying to figure out what the best course of action for himself is. That's until he comes across a paper. This paper would be interesting. It says that he doesn't actually, or he could join the group of this dungeon of some sorts. It seems like it's a C rank dungeon, and they're actually going to do a C rank dungeon, quote unquote, and more or less they want to have a bunch of people that they're not allowed to get battle drops, but they'll get a lot of money for it. Now Fumi would think that this obviously is too good to be true. I mean, it has to be, right? Like, why would they just offer a ton of money but just be like, oh, you just can't pick up the battle drops? And now Fumi would think to himself that he probably shouldn't join something like that, because he really does need to maintain as many battle drops as possible. So he decides to avoid that one and join a different one. It's a lower ranked dungeon. It's a D ranked gate, but still it's something basic, and they allow E ranks, and he says that he is an E rank E-rank tank, and they think that that'd be fine as long as he doesn't completely fall over and die. He meets some new people, not really worrying about knowing or wanting to know who they are, and they all enter, about 10 of them, the D-rank dungeon. Now, this D-rank gate isn't going to be too difficult, and they're going to have to deal with a couple things, and obviously Naofumi takes alongside his doggo, or his dog at the moment, who he, well, isn't quite naming just yet, but he does think about a name and maybe kind of contemplates it for a little bit, but he doesn't want to give the dog a name just yet because he doesn't want to get too attached. But soon he would realize that this dog is a lot more useful than he possibly could think, because the first wave of monsters that they have to take on are actually just some basic run-of-the-mill goblins. Now, these goblins, they go over pretty easy for the majority of the people, and now Fumi continues to absorb as much as possible. and also take some of these crystals. It seems like there's these blue crystals that drop that normally sell for quite a bit, but when Naofumi absorbs them into his shield, he actually gains quite a bit of experience, gaining him and the dog next to him, his doggo of course, quite a bit of XP, which would shock him entirely. I mean, that's a lot of experience he just got from these tiny shards. I mean, there's shards like kind of scattered around the area, and he's heard rumors that some of these shards actually just grow and you can mine them. So the fact that he can get levels from these tiny blue shards, or these shards that drop from killing these monsters, this could be extremely beneficial for him. And also any party he decides to build from here on out. He continues to level up more and more throughout the entirety of the dungeon, tanking for everybody as best as he possibly can, and everybody is shocked to see how good of an E rank he really is. They ask if he's really an E rank because, well, it seems like he's doing a lot, but he says that his expensive gear that he was basically gifted after his grandfather died, you know, that's what really carries him through these dungeons, in which everyone actually just believes him. They think, oh, you know what, you're right. I mean, it's obvious that the gear is what's really doing it, and they all just agree that Naofumi isn't necessarily super powerful. His gear is just super powerful. Naofumi would just take it and, you know, be like, yeah, that's totally true, as him and his dog continued to basically block as much damage, and also his little doggo starts getting some action himself, and he starts gaining some pretty damn strong power. And this would lead them to the final boss of the D rank dungeon, which they believed was going to be pretty basic and pretty simple, but soon they would learn it's actually a big and a pretty big sizable wolf. This wolf would immediately try and attack them, and Naofumi would airstrike shield the wolf right in the face, blocking the damage. His dog wants to run in and try to, like, you know, fight it out as well, but Naofumi basically tells him not to do that. But the dog that he has right next to him begins to glow, and he's shocked to see this. What is even happening? He begins to see his shield glow as well, as his dog would begin to grow in size, almost being the same size as the giant wolf-like creature that is standing in front of him. He would then smile and think that he must have a different effect on these animals in this world, even though his powers are very similar similar in comparison to his last world. Now, he immediately sends off his dog, and everybody is in shock as they follow the dog, or the giant wolf now, right behind. And they begin to attack the other wolf, killing him eventually and ending the D rank dungeon. Now Naofumi would have his, well, little dog shrink back in size, and would think to himself that he feels that it's only fitting to name him after, well, a dog from some sort of mythology. So he decides to call the dog, well, that turned into a giant wolf, Fenrir, thinking that it's pretty fitting, and he thinks that it's a very fearful name in terms of people will now fear it, or fear the giant wolf that's running down on them to kill them. So he decides, why not call him Fenrir, and it seems like the little Fenrir likes the name because he jumps on the neck of Naofumi once again and just lays down and goes to sleep. Naofumi would approach the giant wolf, absorbing some of the fur, some of the pelts, some of the crystals, and all of that, gaining a ton of XP, even getting to the point where he's at level 15, and his dog's already at his Fenrir is already at level 12. Seeing that Fenrir has a boosted experience, very similar to the Slave Crest, but not to that degree. Not as high of experience, but since they have some sort of animal whisperer bond, it seems like his experience continues to ramp up. Now, this would lead him into doing a couple dungeons here and there, and eventually he would stumble across a dungeon with a couple other people he doesn't personally know, but he decides to join in. And he sees this person. He sees one person, and this person looks very familiar to him. He looks at him and kind of squints his eyes, and, well, let's just say he sees this person, and then he pans over to the side to see a girl. Wait, he knows who this is. He's seen this. This is the same healer that helped during the golem, in which he would introduce himself and ask if she is that same girl, and she would say, "Oh, yes, of course," and would basically introduce herself. She would say that her name is Jo-hee, and also the guy next to her is Sun Jin-woo, in which immediately Naofumi thinks to himself that he's heard that name before, but he was supposed to be weak, and he's seen this person running away after what he thought was destroying, well, the giant golem. And he would think to himself, that's interesting. He's going to hold on to it, but it's very interesting. He looks behind him as someone walks up, seemingly being part of the raid party to fill out some of the other hunters. And of course, Naofumi would meet all the other people, but I'm gonna be honest, Jin-woo and Jo-hee are the main ones that he meets, and he does meet the other people as well, but it's nothing too important massively. Nothing is that crazy at the moment. But he does see these other prisoners and also Kang, and gets a really bad feeling about what's going on. Like, all of this feels like a setup, and trust me, he knows what a setup is like. So he walks over slowly to Jin-woo and says that he knows, in which Jin-woo would be shocked to hear this, and asks and pulls him over and asks him what does he mean by that. And he says that he knows that he's an E-rank hunter who's extremely weak. But then immediately Sun Jin-woo would be like, no one's hiding that information, excuse me. And immediately Naofumi responds that he says he knows. And then Sun Jin-woo would feel completely out of place for a second and realize what he's saying. Sun Jin-woo realizes that Naofumi is saying that he knows that he is stronger than he's leading on, but Naofumi would nod to him and say that, and point toward his shield and tap it one time, and would insinuate something that it seems like Sun Jin-woo has at least some sort of understanding with. But he would pause for a second, and Naofumi would tell him that he seems like a trustworthy person, so he's going to say this, and he's going to say it very, very, very seriously. Them going in here might be a bad idea, because he has a bad feeling about this. Sun Jin-woo would look at Naofumi and realize that it's not like he's referring to anything crazy. He's not referring to a threat. Naofumi's not referring to it as he's going to hurt anybody, or Sun Jin-woo's going to hurt anybody, but Sun Jin-woo would pan and look toward Kang and the other prisoners and would now realize what he's saying. But still, for now, they go in walking through the gate as they're aided by a bunch of prisoners, and also Kang, a B-ranked hunter who is working with these prisoners and the associations involved with them. But what's going to happen in this B rank, or this dungeon, or this C rank dungeon, excuse me? Well, you're gonna have to find out in the next part of What If Naofumi wasn't solo leveling. It seems as if Naofumi has gained some sway with Sun Jin-woo, and also some sway with the group. It seems like Sun Jin-woo's suspicions before even entering the dungeon are confirmed by Naofumi, something that he wasn't expecting out of someone he's never met before, or really has never even been associated with at all. But when they enter as a large group, it seems as if the dungeon decides to actually show a three-way junction, and the group would be forced to split up. So one group, being that of Kang, has the prisoners would go into one part of the sections. The other sections would be Jong-ho and also San-shik, being able to go through another section of the dungeon. And then Jin-woo would also go with his small group, who would include Jo-hee and also the swordsman. Now, this would be the time where Naofumi actually decides to not go with Sun Jin-woo, going with the two people that he doesn't really know much about. So he would decide to go with them, thinking that maybe they'll need some help. Maybe they'll need some assistance. He'll be able to supply some support-ish items and also block some decent damage. Maybe he can help them out to the best degree, and also lay low to a certain degree as well. He would follow them, and they would speak a little bit as they're killing monsters, and they would talk about how that Naofumi is supposed to be an E ranker, or that's what they've heard, but it seems like he's far stronger than your normal E ranker, and they wonder, is he not the best of persons? And which he would be confused, but they would ask him if he's a false ranker, in which Naofumi would say that he's not a false ranker. He doesn't even know what that is, but no, he's not. He was deemed an E ranker, and that's it. And then they would ask him about his dog, in which he would introduce Fenrir to the two of them and would say that he's just a dog, a stray dog that he picked up at a park nearby, and he decided to take care of him. In which that's all of that which they talked about, and all of they talk about until they see something that they never imagined they would see, and that would be Kang. Kang would be killing and has killed all of the prisoners. All of the prisoners would be dead to rights, and Kang would turn to them, realizing that he now needs to kill them as well to make sure that nobody can actually get an idea of what happened here. But immediately, Naofumi would jump forward, blocking the first strike by Kang, and he can tell that this dude is pretty damn strong. And immediately Fenrir would jump off his back and turn into his giant wolf form, biting into Kang's arm and actually pushing him back quite a bit. Kang would immediately be shocked to see this and would wonder, how is he able to do that? I mean, how would he be able to control some sort of animal? It doesn't make sense. They really haven't seen anything like this before. And Kang would say it wouldn't even matter anyways, because they're all going to die here no matter what. Naofumi would obviously utilize a multitude of his shields and continue to try to subdue Kang to the best of his ability. He doesn't really have a ton of stuff that would allow him to, well, kill Kang, and he's able to subdue him, reveal him, and actually get rid of all of the perks that he would normally have as an assassin. He would be able to kind of limit the movement. He would be able to reveal him every time he enters the shadows, and Naofumi would be just in a massive stalemate with him. And this massive stalemate would continue on because the two people he's with, they won't be able to stand a chance against Kang, and Naofumi tells him not to worry about it and not to, well, get involved. He tells them to go find Sung Jin Woo and the other group, and we'll figure out a plan from there. In which they're not sure why they want, or he would want to go get them, but he would tell them to go find them right now. And he would fend off Kang for a while. And this battle would be a pretty crazy one, where Naofumi would take considerable damage, but Kang would also take some passive damage as well, as Naofumi has a ton of shields that would be able to allow him to do some passive, maybe like poison like damage, or even spiky shield like damage, and it would continue on and on. This is very tank versus assassin, but the tank doesn't really do a ton of damage, and that's just the fact of it. Naofumi doesn't do a ton of damage, but he has a crazy amount of sustain, and he has also a crazy amount of healing. So he's able to stay in that fight and just slowly but surely exhaust and whittle down Kang. And the more he does that, the more the opportunity continues to accelerate for him to actually finish him off. But it seems like he's not going to have to finish him off, because as he feels that his like kind of restoration is getting lower and lower, he feels this mass exertion of energy flood through his body, as if a ton of energy comes through him, because, well, Johee's currently behind him and healing him. He's shocked to see this, as he sees the one-handed swordsman come in spiraling and beginning to fight with Naofumi. Naofumi would tell him that his swordsmanship must be impressive if he can fight with one arm, and the guy would smirk a little bit, and Naofumi would nod his head, saying that he'll give him an opening. Naofumi would immediately slam his shield on the ground, as the ground would quake and shatter as it begins to, or a bunch of vines begin to actually protrude from the ground, going toward the assassin. Kang would try to avoid and enter the shadows once again, but Naofumi would raise his shield, shining a bright light, clearing out all of the mist, all of the dust, all of the shadows, and everything would clear out, and it was as if his assassin-like nature wouldn't matter, and he would have to fight one-on-one with a master swordsman no matter what, in which Naofumi would give openings more and more for the swordsman to kill him, but it seems as if he's not even strong enough to finish the job. But there's one person that is far beyond strong enough to finish that job. Sun Jin-woo would come walking over and tap on Naofumi's shield and say that he's proven enough and that he can handle it from here. Naofumi would smirk a little bit and would tell him not to mess this up, and that he could have eventually defeated him if he had enough time. In which Sung Jin Woo doesn't really smile much but nods in agreement as he walks toward Kang, and Kang remarks that he stands no chance here, but Naofumi would tell him that he's not going to be able to hide in his shadows ever. He begins to then shine a light once again as the shadows and the assassin-like nature of Kang's abilities are null and void, leading to Sung Jin Woo easily butchering Kang and killing him right then and right there. Naofumi would be pretty shocked at how swift and easy he was able to do so, and well, Sung Jin Woo would even give his thanks to Naofumi, but before you even know it, Sung Jin Woo would actually strike the shield of Naofumi as Naofumi would block. Immediately, Sung Jin Woo would raise his hands up, saying he doesn't want to fight, he just wanted to see how durable that thing truly was, and it feels like a totally different weapon. It feels like it's out of this world, in which Naofumi would say that he gets that a lot, and it might be out of this world, but it's something that is, well, somewhat special to him. He would basically pat on the shield a little bit, and he would say that this thing right here is something that I don't even understand fully, and I've used it for a very, very long time. But it seems like we're not so different. Naofumi regards this and says that to Sung Jin Woo, but he gestures to his mouth as if he's saying that he's not going to say a word and to not worry about it. Now, after Kang's death, everybody talks for a little bit, and most people go on their leisurely way, and that includes Naofumi. Naofumi has really nowhere to go. He has to find his way through this world now on his own. And he does decide to exchange some sort of contact with, well, Sung Jin Woo. But of course, Naofumi doesn't really have that much and tells him where he basically stays at, and if he ever needs help, that he can visit him over there. Naofumi tells him that he has a lot of stories for him that he probably won't believe, but it's something that maybe they'll talk about sooner rather than later. Fenrir and Naofumi would head off after the dungeon, and Naofumi would avoid questioning for the most part, and that would include Sung Jin Woo as well. Now, they would somewhat want to speak with Naofumi, but Naofumi would be gone. It's as if he's off the radar almost instantly, and well, that's the fact of it. He continues to portray himself as a tank, as someone that is just flat out a tank-like person, and even though he continues to get stronger and stronger, especially after every single dungeon, Naofumi makes it very, very clear to everyone that he's just a flat out person that, you know, uses a shield, that does some tanking, that does this and that and this. But he makes it very clear that it's very simple, and he continues to make a good little bit of money doing your leisurely kind of, you know, gate here and there. But of course, there's one thing that he really needs, and that's a lot of money. He needs a ton of money, and luckily enough, he actually gets a knock on his door, or well, kind of a ring on his door sooner rather than later, and that is from Sung Jin Woo. Sung Jin Woo would actually invite him to do some stray dungeons with some other people that he knows, and that they need to keep it on the low, and that don't worry about anything else that's going on, and whatever. Like, it's free money, it's free items and all of that. And he would ask Sung Jin Woo if it's okay if he can actually absorb some of those blue light crystals. He's not sure what they are, but they're pretty important to him and important to his shield. Sung Jin Woo would now realize that his shield is a lot more special than he possibly thought in the first place, but he also then tells him that why not? Sure. As long as he somewhat stays out of the way, don't, get yourself in trouble in these C-rank dungeons, we should be good. In which he does go on a few C-rank dungeons with Sung Jin Woo, and also this very, very, very optimistic guy that he knows very little about by the name of Jin Ho. And they continue kind of making extra money and making some more money in general. And eventually, Sung Jin Woo would catch a glimpse of what Naofumi is truly capable of, because Naofumi is currently creating things off of some stray pieces of what basically these monsters have dropped. Things that would be useless to a normal hunter are very useful for Naofumi. In which, of course, Sung Jin Woo would ask, does he have any potions in there? Like, what kind of potions does he make? And which Naofumi would kind of like shoot out this odd like look and be like, why would you think that he could, or that I could create potions? I mean it's just a shield, right? In which Sung Jin Woo would shake his head, and Naofumi would laugh a little bit and say that he's messing with him, and he would say that yes, that he can make potions. That's one of his innate skills, and it's one of his skills that was very beneficial to him in the other world. In which Sung Jin Woo would be shocked to hear this, but it does kind of make sense that he comes from a different world. He would then explain to Sung Jin Woo that he's able to create potions of very massive, potent, or very potent potions, depending on what you want. It could be anything. It could be to cure poison. It could be to heal you. It could be to... And then as he's explaining more and more different potions, he asks... Naofumi, if he could cure illnesses. Well, probably. I mean, it depends on what ingredients we're talking about. In the other worlds, I could probably cure any illness by the fact that my shield was so powerful back there. But now, I'm not so sure. In which Sung Jin Woo would say that was a stupid question anyways, but Naofumi would want more information, asking him to explain further, in which Sung Jin Woo would say that his mother is comatose, basically has a horrible illness that can only be cured by an S-rank like antidote, you could say. In which Naofumi says, comatose, huh? I don't think I'll be able to cure her, but I might be able to wake her up for a little bit. In which immediately Sung Jin Woo would be shocked to hear this, and Naofumi would say that he could throw some things together, and if he has some very specific items and that they could put in his shield could analyze it further and maybe find some sort of cure. Maybe, he's not 100% sure, but they could try. In which Sung Jin Woo and also Jin Ho would actually bring Naofumi to a place that has a ton of different items that they either saved or just items that they have, and stuff that could be from herbs to different essence and stuff like that. So he absorbs all of it, which is perfect for Naofumi, because that's the biggest benefit of his shield and the biggest thing in general. And he learns how to actually make a potion, but it's not to cure all illnesses. It's a somewhat minor illness cure, but it seems as if this illness cure is only temporary. It seems like this cure is only for a short period of time, and he even explains that to Sung Jin Woo, saying that he knows that his potion making is strong, but the only reason why this thing is a cure all illnesses for a short period of time is because of how strong his shield and potion making is. He begins to create the potion, and as he does, he would give it to Sung Jin Woo, and Sung Jin Woo would tell him to please follow him, as they would head off to the hospital to find the mother that he's speaking of. Naofumi would remark that he misses his family, so he can't imagine even watching his own mother lay here on this bed like this as well. in which Sung Jin Woo would question where Naofumi's family is, in which Naofumi says back in his home world, and he was supposed to go there, and he somehow ended up here. In which Sung Jin Woo would nod and would realize that maybe his life isn't so absolutely horrendous. I mean, this guy fought through an entire other world, but that now has to deal with being in another world that is absolutely horrible. Then Sung Jin Woo would be about to pour the potion on top of her mother's head, or his mother's head, and Naofumi would wave his hand and grab the potion from him. He would tell him that if he enacts the potion, it should be even stronger, so he might get a little bit more time with his mother. In which he would nod as Naofumi would pour the potion on his mother's head, rubbing it in slightly as the potion would basically absorb within her body, and a glow of this green aura would start and then stop. Immediately her eyes would flicker and she would wake up just briefly. Naofumi would sit there as they would have their moments, but Naofumi would look at him about a couple minutes later with a look of she's about to go back into her comatose state. Of course, Sung Jin Woo would be disappointed, but would say that he's going to make sure to cure her in the near future, and that he's getting stronger, and he's not the weak person that he once was. His mother would regard him as someone who is the strongest person she's ever met, and to not worry about those silly rankings, and not worry about those silly people that would call him weak. And immediately, his mother would fall back into her comatose state, and Sung Jin Woo would be teary in the eyes, and Naofumi would be just sitting there, not knowing exactly what to say. Sung Jin Woo would stand up, and then would tell Naofumi that he appreciates everything he's done for him, and that he's going to continue to reciprocate as much as possible, so that he can obviously help him not only get home, but also help him in this world, so he doesn't have to deal with all of the bad things. In terms of, he wants to be able to deal with have a home, have a place, all this stuff, and even tells him that if he needs a place now, he has a place right now that he could definitely stay at if he so chooses. In which Naofumi would wave him off and say that he's made quite a bit of money, so we should be able to get a small apartment, and tells him not to worry about it, and to more worry about getting to the level of strength that he needs to get to cure his mother. Naofumi would be about to leave and tell Sung Jin Woo that he wishes him the best, and if he ever needs some help, he knows who to call. Naofumi would leave and head home once again, but the journey of Sung Jin Woo would continue on. Naofumi may be relaxing and may have done something for somebody that he doesn't even know, and has done something massively special, but this has given Sung Jin Woo the thrill and the want to do even more. And soon he would enter a new domain of strength and power when he faces down Icarus. But that is not the story for Naofumi. That is not the story of Naofumi, even if he has implanted a very good head start within Sung Jin Woo and has helped him quite a bit. The story of Sung Jin Woo is one of his own. So this is the end of What If Naofumi was in solo leveling. And if you enjoyed, show some love, leave a like, leave a sub, leave a comment down below, all that good stuff.